So I keep seeing it again and again and again, where people are coming out and saying that we're not allowed to keep the feasts outside of the land of Israel, Jerusalem in particular. Jerusalem is not the first place Yahweh put his name, by the way. In Deuteronomy, when it says, when you enter into the land, there will be a place that Yahweh put his name, it's not talking about Jerusalem right there. The first place Yahweh put his name, you can see it in the book of Judges and 1 Samuel. There's a place called Shiloh. Eli was the high priest. He had 2 wicked sons. You can go read about that, I think, at the beginning of 1 Samuel. But does the Bible teach that we can only keep the feast in Jerusalem? Well, we long for the day. Yahweh's people long for the day when we hear, come, let us go up to the mountain of Yahweh, to the house of the Elohim of Yaakov. He will teach us of his ways. We will walk in his paths. The law will go forth from Zion, and the word of Yahweh from Jerusalem. We look forward to that day. I can't wait until the kingdom of Yahweh on the earth. And we've got thousands upon thousands of people flocking to one central location to keep the festivals. That's wonderful, like Yeshua did. Yeah, Yeshua, even though during his lifetime they were under Roman rule, Yeshua, according to Luke chapter 2, he would go up to Jerusalem with his parents to observe the festivals. And he continued on to do that when he was grown. We have to take all Scripture into consideration, because the very first Pesach, Passover, was done in Egypt. Yahweh let them keep the Passover in the land of Goshen in Egypt. The sacrifice, the blood on the doorpost, the destroying angel passed over, all done in Egypt. The second Passover was done in the wilderness. They were in the wilderness wandering, had not entered into the land yet. Numbers chapter 9, as a matter of fact, there's a caveat there in Numbers 9 that if you're unclean or in a journey and you can't make it for the first Passover, you can keep it in the second month. They're doing it in the wilderness. And then you have one, I think, later on in Joshua 5, it's recorded that they kept the Passover there in the plains of Gilgal, I believe it is, something to that effect. Joshua 5, 10 through 12, I'm going by memory. So there we have 3 recorded Passovers when Israel had not yet entered into its rest. Of course, we know that, the whole journey was Sukkot. They were dwelling in booths there in the wilderness, so that was the entire journey. We also have Deuteronomy chapter 30, right there at the beginning, where Yahweh says when his people, Israel, are scattered amongst the nations and they begin to observe his Torah, that he will look upon that and bring them back to their land, the land that he swore to give to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So he's telling us we have the ability to keep Torah, not completely, not fully, not to the T, but to the best that we can. He looks upon it and he brings us back to the land, whether you're native-born Israeli or a member of the nations grafted into Israel, Ger Toshav or Ger Tzaddik. Also, do you really think that when Daniel was in Babylon for those 70 years and the holy festivals, the yearly festivals rolled around like the Shabbats, do you think he just ignored them? Or do you think that he did what he could? Hey, this is Pesach. We're going to honor it. I'm not going to eat leaven this week. That's exactly what Orthodox Jewish people do today in what they call the diaspora or diaspora, depending on how you pronounce that. They observe the festivals to the best of their ability outside of the land as a memorial for how it's done inside of the land. I don't think people are taking all of the Scripture into consideration. When Israel is restored, all of the tribes in the land that Yahweh gave to Father Abraham, the festivals will be kept in all of their purity to the best that it's possible to observe them as it was under like a King Hezekiah or a King Josiah. Right now, we're doing the best that we have the ability to do. We're not just going to ignore it when they float around on Yahweh's calendar every year. We're not going to ignore it. I'm not going to ignore it. I don't care if people call me a feaster or try to be derogatory. They're really hardcore, man. These people have no love, no kindness. It's irritating. It's grating on my spirit. There's no fruit of the Spirit. There's no Beatitudes going on with how they come across. So be encouraged. We're actually keeping Sukkot right now. I know a lot of my Orthodox friends, our Messianic Jewish friends, are doing it next month, and I love and respect that. I appreciate anybody who sets their heart to observe the calendar that Yahweh has outlined in Leviticus 23 and Deuteronomy 16 to the best of their ability, the best that they know how with the congregation. Make sure that if you base what you believe on Scripture, that you don't just base it on one or two Scriptures. Make sure that you base it on the totality of Scripture. The Reformers, even though I think they didn't have everything right, they called it sola scriptura in Latin and then tota scriptura. That means Scripture alone, and all of Scripture is our authority. And that's my personal view. I don't explain it in the exact same way the Protestant Reformers explained it, but yeah, the book of the Torah, Joshua 1, 7 through 8, is not to depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate upon it day and night. Nobody that I know in the Torah community as a whole is saying that they're doing everything perfectly, but we're striving. We're trying to have covenant faithfulness with Yahweh. So be encouraged, keep the feast, enjoy your time. Shalom, shalom.